Malika Kazia, KTN News.
All right, well, it's time now for the Week in Perspective with a seasoned economist, Ken Gishinga, who of course doubles up as the CEO of Mentoria as well. Thank you, Ken, as always, for being with us.
Thank you for having me, Malika.
So we'll go right into it from that particular story, actually, and to the numbers of what Kenya expects to gain still from China in order to further some of our infrastructure projects. We're hoping to get 65 billion shillings for the Nairobi Express Highway. Of course, that will connect JKIA all the way to Westlands. We've got that 120-kilometer SGR linking Nairobi to Naivasha at 150 billion, and the SGR line from Nairobi to Kisumu through Naivasha at about 380 billion shillings. So we're still seeking even more from China in order to fuel some of our development. How prudent is that?
Well, it's crystal clear that Kenya needs infrastructure. There are dozens of reports have said that we have an infrastructure deficit because you need infrastructure to move goods, to move people. The challenge is how much are we allocating towards infrastructure and where this money is coming from. It's through debt, which is very expensive debt. So I think the question of do we need the infrastructure, I think that matter is settled. But the question is, how much are we paying for these projects? If you compare the SGR with the SGR in Addis versus Morocco, are we paying per kilometer? Are we paying the same? And the answer is no. And that's where the questions are starting to come in.
So why so much higher then in comparison? So I guess we need to get back to the drawing board and see where we can actually cut costs.
Absolutely. They've tried to say, guys, you cannot compare Kenya and Ethiopia. The landscapes of Ethiopia are much different to what we have in Kenya. So there's a point that they're trying to make that you really can't have a apples to apples comparison when it comes to infrastructure. But sometimes even then, people still feel we are paying too much. People have that feeling that, you know, we could spend a lot of this money in the smaller roads connecting farms to markets. People feel that could stimulate the economy much more.
So we're paying premium, I suppose. But, you know, aside from that, of course, the other story that I would love to discuss with you for this week is our debt. And it is ballooning. It is something that a lot of people have raised so many questions about. And we get the figures right here. But as of September 2018, our public debt stood at over 5 trillion. That's a massive amount. And if we look at the external debt, it's close to 2.61 trillion shillings of that amount. So half is external, more than half really. You know, how do we manage this?
You know, a few years ago, the issue of public debt or national debt was something we economists would discuss in seminars, in workshops. It was a very esoteric topic for economists because it was the language used was very futuristic. But what's happening right now is the issue of public debt has percolated into the public psyche, where even the normal average Kenyan, even the mama mboga nowadays, will weigh in on the conversation on public debt, which really means people are connecting the hardships of the cost of living. Every time people see the cost of fuel going up, they say, oh, that's going up so we can pay our national debt. And that is creating a dangerous public psyche because in economics, as I had said earlier, sentiments or expectations of the future sometimes are far more important than the actual. So if people expect the future will be difficult, the cost of living will continue to go high up, people will not invest as much in the economy. So you'll end up having this vicious cycle downwards. So it's very important that the Treasury find a way of capping this. I know yesterday they proposed a cap of 6 trillion to the public debt, but it's very important that we get a lead on it because the rate we are going, it's generating a lot of negative energy, which is not very good for the economy.
Within the people, of course, their minds are focused on that. It's become this chain reaction, I suppose, almost a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Precisely. If you read even some of the best economic writers, whether you're reading people like David Hume, a treatise on human nature, or Adam Smith on the theory of moral sentiments, they'll tell you that the perceptions sometimes are more important than the actual. So if people feel the next 6 months are going to be much more difficult, people will not invest. People will sit back and the economy will start moving backwards. And that is a dangerous thing. So the president, the Treasury CS, has to rise above and inspire hope, create hope, you know, come with a new deal and say, Kenyans, it's time we cap our debt. We need to generate our own revenue. Because if you look at KRA during the Kibaki era, it never used to hit its targets, but it was far more aggressive than the KRA of today. So we need to go back to that KRA that really raised revenue for the government, and the government used it for a lot of the infrastructure projects like the Thika Superhighway.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then the other issue is, of course, that the report reveals that debt to GDP ratio stood at 57.1% during the 2017-2018 year, and it's a marginal reduction from the previous 57.5%. But there's that 60% cap that says we're able to sustain it. So how do you find this? How optimistic are you with this particular ratio?
Well, I'm not very happy when I hear half of the taxes that are being collected are going to servicing debt. So I don't even need to know what the debt to GDP ratios are. When I tell you half your income is going towards servicing debt, obviously it doesn't matter what ratios you're looking at, but it tells me that you are in a distressed position, and you, over the next 10 years, as IEA says, you might start defaulting on your debt. For me, that's the most important ratio. How much of our revenue, and that's 52.4% of our taxes, are going to servicing debt.
Yeah.
So whether I see on social media people saying our debt to GDP ratio is 75%, other people saying it's 52.
The confusion over the figures.
Everybody has their own calculations nowadays, but for me, the most telling statistic is how much of your taxes is servicing, because taxes are what build schools, what build hospitals. So if those activities are not happening, it means you are getting into a more and more distressed position.
All right, so Ken, we'll come right back to you.